Hello, today we're going to be making a point out of some quartzite. Now, this stuff is pretty good quality grain. It's pretty homogeneous. If you look at the granular structure, you can see that there's itty bitty tiny clay, little specks in there. It's part of the formation that I found here in Amherst County, Virginia. I wouldn't call it antitum because it doesn't have the worm in it, but I would say that this is a good quality quartzite. We're going to be trying a couple of different things, mainly direct percussion. I might later try out these shaft punches that I got this idea from Flint Knapping Tips. I can't remember his name, but his shaft punches, I've found out that I can get these quartzite pieces really thin by using the shaft punches, and I'm gonna see if I can make this big piece of quartzite here into a Morrow Mountain type of style point. So let's get started, and I'm gonna try to talk through these, or at least attempt to talk, because I'm typically very silent when I'm flint knapping, but for the sake of YouTube I gotta talk. And gosh, these mosquitoes are eating my ass up. So I guess we can start a little about me, maybe talk about my flint knapping journey, or at least my flint knapping career. I started flint knapping when I was around 12 years old. I got into the hobby because I was getting into bushcraft stuff, and mainly I wanted to find out how I could make my own tools without blacksmithing, because I did get into blacksmithing for a little bit, but it was very limited in what I can do with natural materials that I had around me. So my question is how can I make my own tools using resources around me? And eventually I came across stone tools, making your own tools out of stone, and I did some digging, and I came across flint knapping. And flint knapping to me was essentially my little hobby that I created for myself. That wasn't such a good hit. I should have picked up a bigger billet, but oh well. But I've been flint knapping for a long time. I even got tutored by somebody. His name was Eric Callahan. He was Dr. Eric Callahan Jr. He was a pretty cool guy. I'm gonna switch it up and use this fire hardened dogwood. But he was a pretty interesting guy. He showed me all the techniques that I know, because I originally learned as much as I could from YouTube until YouTube could no longer provide any new knowledge that I wanted, because most of the stuff on YouTube, except maybe a couple of people, do Aboriginal, and that is the style that I go with. And for the longest time I would order my rock from Neolithics, and that's a good website, but it gets pretty expensive after a while. So that was a pretty good flake. It went all the way to there. And I guess any flint napper that's been doing it for a while can figure out how much money it is to get a box of rocks in the mail over 4 years. But I've been doing it like that for about a couple of years, and then afterward, when I went to a Knapping, I found this group of guys. They used wood instead of antler, and I was like, what the hell? I was so intrigued because I was like, I didn't know wood could knap stone. I was just intrigued by it. And after I was there with the guys for a little bit, there was Keith, Pete Davis. Oh, there's a little chipmunk on the log right there. That's cute. Jack Cresson. All those really well-known names were the ones that mentored me on wood. They were the ones that showed me a couple of techniques. And it took me a while to figure out wood knapping, and especially getting used to quartzite, because quartzite, it's a good material. It just has a very rough learning curve, especially with wood. You know, wood is very different compared to antler because I believe it has a slower buildup rate. You know, I don't know if anybody has ever noticed with Aboriginal tools, but antler is slower to pop off flakes than copper, and wood is even slower than antler. And I think it's because of how not so dense the wood is that determines that. That was a good flake right there. And I would say that wood is much softer than antler, and because of that, it takes some time to get used to how the wood affects the stone, especially learning the Hertzian cone pattern with wood. Wood is a lot different than antler because the Hertzian cone comes off in a lip. And that lip is what determines what your flake is going to be. And for sometimes, you know, for wood at least, the platform can even look like a hammerstone platform, and when you take it takes off about the same chunk as a hammerstone, which to me at the beginning was very surprising. Let's see. So this was the flake that came off, and you see how that lip works right there? Like, that lip came off right there, and it took off a pretty significant portion of that platform just to get that flake going. And because of that, you know, wood has a special property with quartzites and even regular materials like cherts and even flints. You know, it just has this particular feel to it. You can do some things with wood that you can't normally do with antler. I haven't really experimented too much with, let's say, wood on chert, because I live in a state where there's no available chert resources. and if there are, it's very small and not big enough to utilize wood. So, you know, I think the natives here that were in Virginia, I don't think they capitalized too much on that for big tools. But I've seen flint knapping tips, and his ability with wood, and it comes down to knapping like shirts and stuff. And you know, I'm not surprised what he can do with it, because mainly with these Aboriginal tools, it's about skill, not the tool. You can make the same tool out of the same material, but it's the spin that the flint napper puts on it that is his personality that really makes the tool, compared to, let's say, a copper bopper that's uniform and pretty symmetrical to every other one that has ever been made, you know. And that's the beauty of Aboriginal tools, is that yes, they are sometimes more costly than, let's say, a copper bopper sometimes, or aluminum, or whatever metal material you want to use. But you can make any tool that you want with Aboriginal tools to do whatever purpose that you want it to do. So let's say if you wanted to make a shaft punch, because you didn't really want to do an indirect version of an antler sticking out of your leg right here, you can just stick it on a stick and run it under your leg and have it sitting on your lap, and you can just knock it and take flakes off. Or you can do it directly with a billet, you know. The variations in what you can do with Aboriginal tools and the type of style that you can put to it is just fascinating. Like, I think it's more fascinating to see somebody use Aboriginal tools and make something very beautiful with them, compared to somebody that made a copper bopper. And I'm not saying that if you use a copper bopper, that's bad. It's not. Use whatever you want to use. If you're having fun with flint knapping, you know, use whatever tools that you can use. Just with my local materials and my property that I have, I'm able to get my dogwood, and because of hunting, I'm able to get my antler tools, but I still have to buy moose. So, you know, to each their own. I don't blame anybody. And I honestly think it's kind of skewed to only think one way. Because even though I use Aboriginal tools, I still have a copper bopper. So, you know, to each their own. There's nothing wrong with it. I say if you enjoy something, do it. I just find it with Aboriginal tools, I have more of a challenge. And I like a challenge sometimes. So that was a good flake, went all the way there. Now we do have a problem area right here. So this is stepped out right here. And then we got a good hinge right here too. So, and in order for me to get rid of this high spot right here, I most likely have to take away this platform and run it into this bad spot right there. which I hope I can make a platform right here so I can send a flake across this way so that I can lip off this low platform right here so that I can come back and take a big flake that way. I think that's what I'm going to do. But continuing on what I said about me learning flint knapping, I learned from Eric Callahan, and he was very close-minded. He was a field archaeologist, but you know, he was a character. I will say that. And anybody that has ever met Eric Callahan will tell you the same thing. He was a character. Okay, so it didn't do what I wanted to do, but it doesn't matter. We'll just abrade again and see what happens. I'll go with a lighter billet this time. Okay. So, although we got rid of that low lip, I still need to come back and address the platform right here. Now, as you can probably see here, I have some crushing going on here. But the beauty about wood is that even though there is some crushing there, you're hitting above it, so it doesn't even really affect the platform too much. Heck, that's an arrowhead right there. See how thin it is? I'll save that flake. We got rid of that high spot from here. We did have to take off a little bit off the tip, but hey, I'd rather keep the tip thin and the base thin than risk having this thing break or end snap. It can end snap at this point of the process. You know, we're at like stage 3 of the process. And I don't want to mess up. I mean, I want to try to keep the contours of the piece about the same. Having a straight edge and make sure I have proper control of the stone. That's one thing that when I learned from Eric, that you have to have control over the stone at every single process. You know, you can't just be hitting those willy-nilly and expecting it to go the way that you want it to. It has to be in a very controlled, tactical manner. And I'm just using another piece of quartzite to abrade this. And I'm going to be using a pretty big billet because I want to try to thin this out as soon as possible, so I can keep the majority of the width. So there's a crack in there. Great. Well, hopefully that crack doesn't affect too much. I really hope it doesn't end up breaking the whole damn piece. And make sure to always thin your base and tip at every step of the quartzite process, because if you don't, you're gonna end snap. Like, that was one of the main things that I was told when learning about wood knapping, is that you always want to make sure that your pieces, tip and base, are thin, no matter what part of the process that you're in. But like I was saying with Eric Callahan, he taught me a lot of things, and man, that was a good flake right there. I learned most of my techniques from him. That includes the side pass. That was an infamous, or a famous, I should say, technique of Eric's that he used, where you would have the stone like this and you'd boom, like that. I still use it time to time. It's a good technique. You can actually send flakes off of a high platform using that. I don't know how, or how you can do that, but I don't even really know the science behind it. All I know is that it's effective, really effective. So we're almost about partway there. I'm just getting rid of some of the other lower or high spots. So like right here, you got a high spot on this edge right here, and we have a high spot on this side, but we have a platform already set, a continuous platform. So but I studied under Eric for about 5 to 6 years, I believe, until his passing in 2019. And because I learned from Eric, I was able to meet guys like James Parker, Jack Cresson, Pete Davis, and I can't remember his other name, Kirk Dreyer, I believe that's his name. I might be pronouncing it wrong, but he's up north. He studied under Eric for a while and kind of went his own way with that knowledge. But I was able to meet those people. They're good people. So we got a hinge right here, but that's okay. Most likely when I come this way and clear this thickness out, it's gonna eliminate that. And I also can make this isolated platform right here that could eliminate part of that hinge right there. I can go under it. But I've been to the Shield Museum with James. I've also been to Hopper Creek, Knapping with Pete. I love going to Hopper Creek, seeing all the guys there. There's also a couple people that I studied under, like Adrian, Frank, and Old Frank. I say Old Frank because there's two Franks that learned under Eric, and the only distinguishment that we could find in between, one was 22 years old and the other one was in his late 40s, and we called them Young and Old Frank. But they're good people. So let's go and take advantage of this continuous platform. Always abrade the heck out of quartzite. There's no such thing as under abrading quartzite. not releasing. There we go. I might have done an overshot flake. Yep, I did. Look at that. The flake came all the way over here and dove down. It was overshot. How cool is that? You don't see that every day with quartzite. It's really hard to overshot it. And I'm just gonna go through here again and follow these ridges that I made to thin this down even more. And I think I can undercut this hinge right here. And I'm just seeing if I can get rid of this hinge by just pecking at it. Because sometimes I've been able to do that. Okay. A little bit better. And I'm just readdressing the platform. There we go. That hinge flake is no longer there. And we're starting to thin this thing out pretty well. But I will say this, you know, if you are able to learn from somebody about flint knapping, I highly suggest that you do it. Switching it up with this piece of boxwood. It's a great learning experience, and you open your eyes to stuff you would never have thought of by doing so. Always a great learning experience. As I have found. So we do have a little bit of a problem here. We got a stepping right here, and we also have this overshot flake that's going in the opposite direction that I want to go. But I think that I can overcome this by just some hammerstone work. I can probably get this platform right here low enough that I can come back this way and get a couple of flakes going that way. And then I can take some flakes this way to thin this part out. But I want to thin the base out a little bit more, because the tip is fine now. It's pretty damn thin. And come this way, get rid of some of that thickness. But I do have to go through here to actually access this part of the base. And I got some stepping that I gotta go through. Step is no longer there. So go that way. Alright. Thin the base out a little bit. You cannot be scared of this stuff when you're hitting it. If you do, you'll mess up real easily. This quartzite is no joke. So like, it took me a lot of breaking my fingertips to figure out where to put my fingers. Because if you don't put your fingers in the right way, you'll clip your fingernails. And there's nothing better than getting your fingernails caught up in a wooden mallet and getting sheared off. It's not a very good feeling, but you need to break some fingertips in order to figure out how this works, in my opinion. Wood is a very complicated type of knapping, in my opinion. The reason why is because no matter what stage in flint knapping you are, you can be an expert or a master flint napper with chert, agates, and all these other, and like novaculite. But you'll feel like a newborn baby when trying to learn wood knapping. That's how at least I felt when I tried learning wood knapping. It's a completely different feel than regular flint knapping with, let's say, obsidian, or let's say Georgetown. And I'll thin this area out. I'm probably gonna need some protection for this because I gotta really hit this hard in order for the flake to go. And I might show some freehand knapping because I find that I'm able to get a lot of good flakes by just freehand knapping with quartzite. I don't know how, but it just works for me. That was the first technique that I learned in wood knapping, was freehand knapping. There we go. That's a good flake. That's a good flake as well. Well, it's coming together. Okay. So we still have some thickness on this side. And once I get rid of this right here, I think the point will be done, because this is already starting to get pretty thin. I just got to be careful about my platforms, because if I hit it too high, it's game over. It'll split in half. Oh, there's a little bird right behind me. He made a little sound that I didn't even know what the heck that was. And I'm busting out some antler. And the reason why is because I want to try to eliminate this without hinging too much. Okay. That's probably as low as I'm going to get it. Now, the moment of truth. You know what? I might bust out the shaft punch for this. I'll be right back. So I got a piece of elk right here. And a whitetail right here. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take, I saw this technique one time. It's where by putting another stone on top of another, so let's say like a hammer stone or whatever, you can actually help brace the stone by adding weight to it. And what I mean by like bracing it, you're essentially adding more weight to it so the stone won't be so affected by the energy. So it's not wanting to detach. That's concerning. Let's use a piece of wood. Okay. Looks like I didn't have to use the shaft punch. But we got the overall biface coming together. I might use the little one to just shape up the edges. Possibly even half it. Or not half it, make the base. Because Morrow mountains typically have a distinct shape. Okay. So I don't need the big punch. Or at least I don't think I need to just yet. Yeah, I think I can just use the small punch for now. And just do some shaping up. I lipped that one off pretty damn good. Platform was too high. I'm still getting used to this technique, but overall I like it a lot because I'm able to actually get some pretty good driving flakes off of quartzite by doing this, but having a small platform and I'm not using a lot of force I could really clean up the base and, you know, the tip with this technique. I probably think that this style of technique was probably used back then to shape up these quartzites, because trying to pressure flake this stuff is like super duper hard. I've tried doing that before, and as you probably saw earlier, it's not easy. It's not very easy at all. But indirect percussion with a punch with quartzite, it just seems just a better solution. And I can really shape up these quartzite points how I want them to be. Make them nice and beautiful without risking breaking the whole thing by how much force I'm using. And I say that, but I need to use some pressure flaking in order for me to get this platform right. I might have to use some wood right here to get this thickness off. But before I do that, go right here, take a flake right there, thin this base, or at least thin the tip out before I take any big flakes. I probably need this one, big boy, that's what I call them. Got a hinge out, but that's okay. That'll be my little touch for the point. Get the smaller one. Starting to come together. Thin out this base a little bit more. And I think I broke my little agreement I made with myself to talk more. Because I am not talking. I am hyper-focusing right now. But I think that's okay. But this point is coming together quite nicely. Might be time to start putting the base on it. And I really hope the train doesn't come by, because I do live next to some train tracks. And it really sounds like one is coming. So I apologize in advance if y'all hear the train. But it doesn't seem to be too loud. Or at least it might be far away and I don't realize it. Need to use the hammerstone for this one. It looks like I'm making a Salutrian than a Morrow mountain. But All right. Oh, hey. So, I think that's going to be my version of a Morrow mountain. I don't know if it is something that looks like a Morrow mountain, but it looks pretty darn good to me. Well, that's going to be all, folks.